Hello, and thank you for this opportunity. So, jumping right into the first question, why do I teach? So, as a child, I remember my mom letting me use the side of our fridge as a whiteboard, and my sister pretending to be my class, and I was the teacher. So, I've always had a passion for teaching. Once I got into college, I had a background in sociology, and I toyed with the idea of being a social worker for a while. But things kind of shifted once I had children. I decided that I definitely wanted to help people and I wanted to make an impact on lives, but maybe not in the social work field. So I decided since I had children, it might be a good idea for me to get into substituting. I lived in the Webster Grove School District, so I started there. I feel like my heart and my nurturing spirit, and my general desire to find the positive light in every student really just kind of led me to having this full circle moment and realizing, just after a few short weeks of subbing, that this is what I wanted to do. So I immediately rolled into the Teach in 12 program at UMSL and completed my certification, and I'm currently working on my master's there. I just really have, I lead with my heart, and I really have a passion for empowering students to make the best decision that they can for themselves. I don't like telling students what to do. I like to help them problem solve and work through their problems to fill out what's right just for them. It just truly kind of warms my heart to know that I'm making a difference in a child's life, even if it's really small. I just love kind of fostering and welcoming those inclusive environments that center around strong relationships and just building a sense of community and family with my students. As far as the second question, I would definitely say I am more student driven than data driven. Now, I do have experience with using data, and I do value using data because I know it allows us to look sometimes at the bigger picture. We can analyze gaps, we can notice overall strengths or weaknesses, and it allows us to properly implement practices and interventions to best serve our students. But if I had to choose, I would definitely say my style was more student centered, because I'm just more focused on encouraging students to be intentional and accountable when it really comes to their education. I believe in the importance of looking at each student as an individual in order to best assess what works for them. I don't like looking at the overall picture always and kind of generalizing students as numbers. I think that everything should be treated at kind of almost as a case by case basis. Placing students at the center of their educational journey kind of allows for a collaborative exchange between not only the students and teachers, but also parents, the community, and other support staff and specialists. I just believe that when you have that collaborative exchange and you place the student at the center of the experience, that allows you to make the best possible plan or set of goals for the students to meet their needs. I also believe that when we place the students at the center of the educational experience instead of just being more data driven, that it allows us to learn more about their passions and their interests, which allows us to build and foster those relationships, which in turn also impacts their learning. Now, if I wanted to describe how I might visually reflect my values related to diversity and equity in my classroom, I have so many ideas. I've never actually had my own classroom. So the first thing that I think about is kind of having a student decorated space. This is their space too. So while I'm going to make my room very colorful and nice and representative for all my students, I want them to feel like they are also very much a part of this process. So I would like to leave a space for students to decorate or to bring pictures of families, friends, things that are special to them. I would really like to focus on my artwork and my books in my classroom. I know growing up that I didn't see a lot of myself reflected in what was in the classroom and that had an impact on me. So I plan to have a classroom that's inclusive and where students can see a reflection of themselves. So I plan on the authors of the books and the artists of the paintings or posters that I have up being of a wide variety of people, including a large population of people of color as well. I also want the literature in my classroom to kind of acknowledge different cultures, also different types of families, different races, and just generally highlighting and welcoming any way of living that is outside of our own. That's the best way to educate each other on our own biases and to foster diverse environments, is to educate ourselves on things that we are not generally aware of in our day-to-day life. And I feel like we can do that a lot through books, art, and just different things like that. I also want to identify a safe space in my classroom. While I hope that my classroom is always a very inclusive, fostering, nurturing environment, I understand that everyone might not feel like that at every moment. So I want to give students a space to sit and reflect when they aren't feeling that way. Maybe even to write something down for themselves or for me, whatever they choose, or just do some soothing activity. But just a safe space where they can really feel like they are still a part of the classroom, even if they are kind of going through something at that point in time. I also believe it's kind of important to maybe have some inspirational quotes. I've seen that quite a bit, specifically from people of color, teaching us how to persevere and overcome, different obstacles that we may incur. So also, one thing that I would like to do is display these charts that I like to work on with my students. So for instance, if we're ever talking about a topic involving different races, different cultures, different ways of living, I like to start a chart that says on one side what we think we know and on one side what we learned. So before we even go, I have students tell me everything they think they know about the topic. And then after a lesson or a couple of units, or the end of the entire few lessons or an entire unit, then typically what I like to do is revisit that chart and then say, okay, we're going to cross out these things that, we thought we knew, to really talk about what we do know. Because in that time right there, I've seen it happen where students really are kind of facing their biases and overcoming the way of thinking that they didn't even realize could have been offensive or just was really misinterpretive. So I think that the best way to enlighten students on some of their biases would be to do this chart. And I like to display these charts maybe for a couple weeks, kind of until we transition into new material and I make new charts, but just to show the students that what we know is not always fact, and we need to challenge the biases and things that we have in our head and be welcoming to learn and to grow together. Do I agree or disagree with that statement? I definitely do. I disagree with this statement. I do not believe in punishing students who struggle with behavior. I know that in the past, especially when I was growing up, that a lot of times it seems like that is the way that they would handle students with behavioral issues, but I'm completely against that. I do feel like all students should be held accountable for their actions, but I feel like each situation should be kind of on a case-by-case basis, like I talked about earlier. All the consequences must be logical. I believe in restorative discipline. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in getting at the root of the problem and empowering the student to be a problem solver and working through things themselves, rather than just giving them some punishment to make them upset at the time, but it really didn't allow them to think through what they were experiencing. So a good educator can observe the situation and kind of collaboratively problem solve to make the necessary accommodations or recommendations for support needed to best suit each student. In my eyes, socio-emotional well-being is just as important as academic achievement. I believe that it's just a matter of discovering the root of the problem and then working collaboratively to set goals and make plans for the student's educational success. Now, as far as what I think that I can bring to the Givens team. So I want to join the Givens teams as essentially a blank canvas. As I'm a new educator, I'm still versed in the latest strategies and techniques without really being tied down to a traditional or previous way of teaching. Obviously, I've worked in the district in the past as a sub and an aide, but I was never a teacher, so I wasn't tied to an old way of doing things. As a permanent substitute and aide in the Webster Grove School District, I'm familiar with the district and how it works. I have experience serving on the problem-solving team, as well as participating on the second grade collaborative learning team. To best serve the needs of our students, I even served as paraprofessional support for students who were transitioning into the special school district. I have experience teaching both virtually and in person. I am very flexible and open to new challenges. In my previous position, it literally required something new from me every single day, so it really kept me prepared for any circumstance. I've been a part of all types of different situations, from emergencies to just routines and procedures. I've been in on conferences, jumpstart conferences, regular, semester conferences. And I feel like that just really kind of gives me an edge to know what the district kind of works like. And I also have a really deep commitment to the Givens Rock Hill community, more inclusively the North Webster community. I'm an educator in this community and I live in this community. I actually moved to this community from North County because I wanted a better education for my children. And I was in one of the houses that was redistricted. So my son will start kindergarten in Givens and my daughter will transition from Avery to Givens. So being a part of this community, I believe it gives me an edge. I feel like it literally adds an extra layer of accountability. This is where I live. I take pride in my home, my family, and my community. And by serving and educating within my community, I feel like I can really foster deep, meaningful connections with students and families. I'm also familiar already with some of the students and families in the area from working at Edgar Road and from just being an Avery mom with my daughter. Also, I'm biracial, but I'm obviously an educator of color. I was raised in North County, and I can really relate to my students. You can only learn so much in a book, but sometimes just the things that you've been through in your life experiences just really make you more reachable for the students. They really feel like they can relate to what you've been through. They understand some of the things that you're saying. I understand the struggles that they are faced with socially, economically, just family issues, anything. I've been through a lot of what my students have gone through, so I can really relate to them. I can just kind of be that safe place where they can turn to for support. I can just be an ear to listen, and I can offer ways to empower them to make the best decision for whatever they're going through. I really believe that when students can relate and see themselves and their educators, that the benefits can be astronomical. I plan to empower, love, and teach my students. And my goal is to really build lifelong relationships with the students, the parents, and the staff. Even though this will be my first, big teaching position, I really would like to say here, maybe even retire my whole career at the same school because I'm just really invested in this community. I love what it has to offer. And I know that this school is transitioning from something from the normal lottery school into the neighborhood school. And I feel like what better way to have a new transition than with a new teacher who's on blank canvas and has very flexible ways of thinking. I'm open to all types of suggestions, any new techniques, any strategies, and I'm willing to really just try whatever works just to get the job done and to best serve the needs of our students. So my goal is to build these relationships and then place the students back at the center of their educational experience. And thank you for your time.